we didn't go into this fight. In fact, you guys aren't in this fight because you want to be loved by everyone.
That's right.
This is the wrong field to be in because people come out of the woodwork, people you grew up with, who you were friends with, and you rode your, tricycles with. I
Yes.
mean, they hate you
Mhm.
because of your love for the truth.
Since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the pro-life movement has changed, and so has the way we fight for the unborn. Many celebrated and stepped back, thinking the war was over, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Abortion didn't end, it just slipped out of sight. And when no one is watching, injustice thrives. We're here to show you why the battle still rages on and how to stand, speak, and fight back in a post-Roe world. This is the CPC Podcast. Well, what's up and Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome back to the CPC Metro Podcast. And welcome in if you guys are new. My name's Chrissy. If you're unfamiliar with the Center for Pregnancy Choices metro area, we are the largest pregnancy resource center in the state of Mississippi, and we exist to empower the choice for life. With me in the studio again today is my friend, our executive director, the Holly to my Jolly, and one of the fiercest women I have ever had the privilege of knowing, Miss Erin Kate Good. How are you
Wow,
today?
quite an introduction.
I
Thank
know,
you.
like you introduce all of the guests, so I'm like, I really need to tell everybody how proud I am of you. So
Well,
I
thank
I
you.
love you so much, and you just had a birthday
I did.
like
I
2 days ago.
did. I did.
So happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
How was your Thanksgiving?
It was wonderful. It was
Good.
relaxing and peaceful, and I was just very grateful.
That's
Very
so
grateful.
good because I know you've got a lot on your plate
I
all the
do.
time.
I do.
So, um, so at my family Thanksgiving, I was actually with my sister scrolling through Radiance Foundation Instagram channel because I am fangirling over the special guest that we have today for this awesome Christmas show that we have decided to call It's a Wonderful Life. So would you do the honors of introducing our guest?
Yes, so we are so honored to have Ryan Bomberger. He is the founder of Radiance Foundation. He and his wife run this amazing organization. They are what I love the most is how bold they are. They are committed to truth, which is something that we are really. You see, I wore the truth, preach it. This is one of their shirts.
Yes, we're representing the Radiance Foundation with these awesome shirts. They're so creative, and so go
Yes.
to their website and look at all the things that
Yes.
might be good for a Christmas gift. So shameless plug there. So
Yes.
anyway,
So
go ahead.
that's okay. So I met Ryan in 2018. He was our banquet speaker. I've had many, many, many people say, "When are you having Ryan back?" But what's so cool about 2018 was our theme that year was "With God, all things are possible," and we had Ryan come in and tell his amazing story, which we'll have him share in a minute. And, we were kind of rolling out our plan as the CPC to shut down that pink house, that abortion clinic, and we were just saying, "With God, all things are possible." We didn't know in 2018 that was, we knew the Gestational Age Act had just passed in Mississippi. That became, the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. So while we were having this banquet and rallying people about, overturning of closing down that pink house, God was already moving with this law that had been
Mhm.
passed in our state, and our theme was centered around Mississippi. We were gonna do, and we didn't know that Mississippi was gonna be, the source of overturning Roe, and Ryan was a part of that, and I just love that. Um, he is bold and courageous, and I'm just so glad and so grateful to have you here with us, Ryan. Thank you.
Yes, let's go ahead and bring him in. Merry Christmas,
Hey,
Ryan.
Merry Christmas. Apparently, we're twins today, so
Yes, love
we
it.
just believe in the same thing, so that's an awesome
Yes,
thing. But
we make it
it's
look
great to
good.
be here. Yeah, definitely. And it was awesome to be there in Mississippi. It's awesome to see that the Pink House shut down. Talk about answer to prayer for so many people for so long. That's a beautiful thing.
Well, welcome to the show, and thank you for being such a great friend of CPC Metro. We're really happy to get to talk to you again and just have you for the part of the first round of shows for this brand new podcast. And so we just wanted to jump right in. This is the show that I've been looking forward to for weeks because it's the Christmas show. It's a Wonderful Life, and we just felt like that theme um, speaks to the pro-life movement, Christmas is a really good time to have pro-life conversations, and we're all about just looking in every corner of what you watch, where you go, the things that you put in your mind, like conversations that you have. Look for threads of gospel conversations through that. And I know that you're a creative storyteller, so I really can't wait to hear how that plays out in your life and the work that you guys do over at Radiance Foundation. But first, going back to the 1946 Frank Capra movie starring Jimmy Stewart, it's iconic. Everybody watches it every year at Christmas, and the thing that I've always loved about the movie is that we see a man say, "It would have been better had I just never been born." And then we see an angel take him by the hand and show him that God has a plan for every life to touch another. And the "it would have been better if I'd never been born" is a very common argument in the abortion side of things. And so your life is a counter to that. And so I would love for you just to tell your story to those who don't know, and then we'll just dive right in.
Absolutely, and I'm very glad to be alive. It boggles my mind when I think about someone who has a pro-abortion worldview when they watch that movie. Do they not do they ever try to reconcile that with their radical worldview on human life?
Right,
I don't understand. You can watch that and not see, "Wait a minute, maybe I'm wrong on this." And I meet
right,
a lot of people, college campuses especially, I mean, he will tell things to my face like, "I should have been aborted." I mean, that they can't it's really unbelievable the callousness with which people interact with others, these days, and on college campuses especially, where they're not even realizing the gravity of what they're saying. But the reality is, I'm alive because I had a courageous birth mom. I'm alive because I had two amazing parents, Henry and Andrea Bomberger, who loved not just me, but loved all 13 of their kids. I grew up in your typical American family of 13 kids, mom and dad,
mhm,
few foster kids, and a lot of neighborhood kids in the house
right,
on a
very
farm in Lancaster County. That was my upbringing. But I'm that story. I'm that fringe example when people talk about the issue of abortion, inevitably they get to the question, what about rape?
right,
And that's my story. My birth mom was a victim of the horrific violence of rape, but I am forever grateful that I was not made a victim of the horrific violence of abortion.
mm,
And so, although I was conceived in rape, I was adopted in love. And that's my story. That's why I fight for the most marginalized amongst the marginalized, because that was once me. And so, fast forward after growing up in a family of 15 with six brothers and six sisters, married to my best friend, Bethany Bomberger, the co founder of the Radiance Foundation. And we have four awesome kiddos, two of whom were adopted. And none of this would have happened without that singular decision of my birth mom so many years ago. She could never have known what the future held, but even in the midst of that horrific pain and that tragedy, triumph was able to rise.
right. And I have watched several of your speeches, and one of the things that you've said that I'm just always going to have with me is that I am the 1% that is used 100% of the time to justify abortion.
Absolutely, and it never fails, and it is, and we see it especially during political season, during election season.
Yes.
They always trot out the, "Look at this case," and they wanna use that to define abortion while they deliberately ignore the 99% that has nothing to do with that, and then, they're just exploiting that tragedy in order to promote more tragedy. That's me. I'm the 1%. You can see, the video. You go to radiance.life, you can see the video, on our website that in 60 seconds breaks down just how one courageous decision will have reverberations for generations. But yeah, that's me. People hear 1% all the time, but I'm actually the 1%.
Right, and there's also just so many more whataboutisms,
Mhm.
right? So, medical what if it's a medical case or, what if it's, something like incest? Talk to us about just how you answer questions like that in a godly way, because not only do I appreciate that you are so, unapologetically pro-life, but you're also taking on social and cultural issues that are very hard, but you're going out there and you're having conversations, and We need people that are going to be bold, and especially men that will go out there and just preach the truth.
Right. Well, men, of course, are always told to be quiet, and that's so.
Right,
What I'd say to men is, don't let anybody gender shame you into silence. I mean, you got a world out there that says, "Oh, if you're not a man, you can't speak to this issue." But this is a human issue.
right,
It's kind of the same ridiculousness if someone said, "Oh, well, you're not black, you can't talk about slavery." What? I mean, thank God for
right,
Harriet Beecher Stowe, a white
right.
woman who never experienced slavery, but who shifted culture massively because of her passion about what was right and just, and she spoke up. So people have to speak out against this injustice, and every one of us have a role in that. The whole what about, you hear that all the time. Well, what about, what if there's a disability? Well, heaven forbid someone shouldn't be that picture of what you perceive as to be as perfect. I mean, I grew up with siblings who have physical disabilities, god brothers and god sister, Down syndrome. And honestly, I think the weakest among us actually make us better human beings, because it kind of forces us in moments to actually show the best side of our humanity. And that's what we should be doing all the time.
100%. Mhm.
So when they say, what about this? What about if there's a fatal diagnosis? What about if we actually care for both mother and child and do the best we can do to elevate both of their lives? What if we allowed someone who we think, and doctors are wrong all the time. Let's not forget that.
Mhm.
Sometimes the diagnoses are wrong. In fact, we've had that in our family, in our extended family. Sometimes, even if they are right, even if the child maybe lives for weeks or months or only a few years, that's a week, month, or a few years that we can become more than we ever thought that we could be, as
Right.
parents, as siblings, as grandparents, as cousins. I mean, as teachers. And so I think about all these cases where they say, "What about?" But the reality is they don't ever talk about the vast majority of abortion. They don't talk about the boyfriends or the husbands that force women into abortion. What about that? They
Right.
don't talk about, well, take my case. They don't ever talk about the rapist. What about punishing the rapist and not the woman and not the child conceived in that violence? So it's interesting that they will always go to these very fringe examples to pretend that they define the entirety of the issue. But in reality, the fringe cases give shape to the
Right.
issue, to the injustice of abortion. And that's why those who are on the fringe, those, friends of mine, colleagues of mine who are also conceived in rape, mothers who conceived in rape, um, and they just show their incredible strength that we can all be stronger than our circumstances.
Absolutely, and if I could get you to tell the story of your mother and the disabled girl, didn't you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Could you, because one thing we also want to see come from this show is just widen the lens, pull back the lens and show that it is not just about the issue of abortion, but it's being pro-life in every area, in all things. So, um, those with disabilities, like Jesus loved people who were unseen and left out. He
Yes.
had a heart for those people, and so this when you told the story of your mom, seeing the disabled girl with no one, to me, that's as pro-life as adoption itself.
Exactly. And those are the beautiful residual sort of effects of us upholding every human life. So my mom grew up in a home with basically a broken home. Her mother and father were separating. Her father was a heavy, heavy drinker and was emotionally abusive. So at the age of 5, my mom was placed in a children's home for an entire year.
Mhm.
And my wife's a teacher, and I think about, like, my kids often work with young kids. In fact, my oldest daughter is also now, her major is elementary ed.
Mhm.
My kids love kids. It comes from my wife and I, definitely, because that's been a focus of our lives. But we often underestimate children, the way that they receive and the way they perceive the world around them.
Yes.
And yet, my 5-year-old mom saw that another little girl wasn't being loved, didn't have a mom or dad to visit her at all. At least my mom had her mom and her dad visit her separately, but no one came to hold that little girl. No one came to tell her that she was loved, and that profoundly impacted my mom. So at the age of 5, she remembers getting down on her knees and asking Jesus into her heart and asking God to help her be a mommy to those who didn't have one. You talk about the pro-life effect of every life. She was impacted by a girl with disabilities. She would come to be a mom of many with
Right.
several children who had disabilities. And you can never measure a person's life, but I wish in some way I could measure my mom's life. She's still alive. She's 80 years old, just turned 80 this year. Love her like crazy. She's still unleashing purpose. But that singular event at the age of 5 changed the trajectory of her life. And
Right.
thankfully, she met the most amazing man I've ever known, my late father, Henry Bomberger. Um, I mean, a man who loved and was so deeply loved, and he shared that same heart. And that's why, after having 3 homemade kids, biological, whatever you want to call them, uh, they then adopted 10, and I was the first of 10 adopted. And that all started by a 5-year-old's heart moved because she saw someone who wasn't being loved
Mm.
the way
And
she deserved to be loved.
that is so biblical to me. Like, God uses the weak to lead the strong.
Yes.
So mad respect for your
Yeah.
mother, and thank the Lord, for her story. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and it just goes back to the movie that we were talking about. You never know what life is going to touch another life, how it's going to touch another life. So, this is just an issue that we have to really, we're trying to reframe the conversation, because Aaron, Kate, and I have talked many, many times
Mhm.
about marketing, and abortion has been marketed so well by the enemy. It's a woman's issue, it's a healthcare issue, it's a political issue. Don't get into it, it's complex, it's none of your business, you know? Aaron, Kate, do you wanna speak on that just a little bit?
Well, I believe it's a gospel issue.
Right,
It's Genesis 1. I mean, we're made in the image of God, and he put us on this earth with a purpose and a value, and he set us apart, humans, human life at the very beginning. You can't get through the creation story without knowing the value of every single human life. And as believers, it is our job to protect that, and to speak that truth, and to uphold that in every single scenario, in every aspect of our life, to uphold the value of human life, from the very smallest, all the way to the tomb, all the way
mhm,
to the end. And we forget all this marketing, forget all this,
right,
all these slogans and all these phrases and all this. This is just, basic human um value and worth and dignity. And is the job of a believer, and especially those who have disability, or who are not in a perfect circumstance. That's the situation ripe for us to say, you too, you are created with a purpose and a value. If you've made mistakes, you've sinned, you've done things that aren't, good, and you feel bad and you feel ashamed, God's here for that too. He sent his son for those. And so we have so much just fertile ground around this issue of abortion for Christians to show Jesus.
right.
This whole, instead of avoiding it or worrying about saying the wrong thing, or offending and all these things, this is Jesus. This is the gospel. This is
Right.
the very core of who we are. We all know it. We don't have to learn how to talk about it. We all know that we were created in the image of God, and the Bible clearly says that we all have a value and a purpose. And so it's not hard. It's not
Yes,
complicated.
it is
We
not
we
hard.
as Christians, sometimes I think we've just decided to make it complicated,
Yes.
and I don't mean that in a accusing way for believers. I'm just saying, sit back and think, your value and your worth. Let's talk about it. Don't shy back. Don't be afraid. Um, we're God's given us a spirit of power.
That's right, and it goes back to the truth, and, I know that you talk a lot about, truth in a lot of your talks, Ryan, so if you could, just tell us about how you tackle these issues, really, like, speaking the truth in love, because you're a bold guy, you have a backbone on you, and you are not afraid to speak the truth, but it's like Aaron Kate was saying, for a lot of people, especially young people, they're having things ingrained in them, they're being marketed to, and I think in their spirit, because I was one of them, like, I knew the truth, but the cool thing to be right now is progressive and, and so for me, it all kinda came down to I had to drill down to the very bottom, ask all of those questions and decide what is the truth, right? You have to come face to face with that. So how do you help, especially young people, navigate this issue of truth in a world that is screaming at them to go the cool other way?
Right. I mean, the word progressive is so interesting because it's so regressive because it goes back to the
Right.
same old brokenness of humanity, of, the fear of truth, the hatred for truth. And it's interesting because we live in a culture today, in a Christian culture in the Western Hemisphere, where we believe that we should be seeker sensitive. There's nothing biblical
Mm,
about that. There's nothing biblical about
yeah,
watering things down. Truth is offensive.
yeah,
Truth is divisive. I mean, Jesus even spoke about that. Now, yes, we are to speak the truth in love, but the problem is so many of us don't bother to speak at all. So
right,
while the world's out there screaming a lie, Christians who have the truth, who know the truth, and who should be living the truth are in a corner somewhere, cowering because we don't want to offend anybody. What they really mean to say, or what they really should say, is, I don't want to play a role in setting somebody free. Because that's what
wow,
happens when we're silent, because we don't allow God to come into that person's life and break those shackles. Truth is everything. 1 Corinthians 13:6 says, love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices in the truth.
right,
It doesn't delight in evil. We live in a culture that is so okay with evil. I mean, look at our entertainment, look at social media. We're
right,
so okay with evil. No, love delights in the truth. And that's why everything that we create through the Radiance Foundation, everything, I mean, I love creating stuff that's fearless, factual, and
yes,
freeing. I'm a creative director. My wife is a teacher by profession. And we love fusing this creative with the educational element. It's why we've written our children's books like Pro Life Kids, and we say crazy things like she is she and he is he. Yes, those are also children's books.
yes,
They're
everything has
all
to be.
out of our heart to speak the truth, but in creative ways, but in uncompromising ways. People feel like, oh, if you need to be winsome, and I understand that to an extent, but not to the detriment of silencing the truth. I don't want to just get along. Actually, that's not even my goal. In fact, if that were my goal, Bethany and I would never have started the Radiance Foundation, because we didn't go into this fight. In fact, you guys aren't in this fight because you want to be loved by everyone.
That's right.
This is the wrong field to be in, because people come out of the woodwork, people you grew up with, who you were friends with, and you rode your tricycles with. I
Yes,
mean, they hate you
mhm,
because of your love for the truth. But I'm telling you, I'm in this business to be used by God in any way, shape, or form, so that people can be set free, so that
absolutely.
people's lives can be saved. And that's why I do what I do. And the messaging part of it is really, there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of praying that goes into it,
No doubt.
hoping that what I create resonates with people's souls.
Well, I think that the work you guys do is just phenomenal, and so I really would love if you would tell our audience about Radiance Foundation. How did it get started? What did what kind of field do you come from? I know that you said you were a creative director. Talk a little bit about how God gifted you with that.
God's amazing in so many ways. I mean, to take someone like me that the world says should have been aborted and uses me to then counter that message, it's actually such an honor to be able to do what I'm able to do. And I can only credit God. I consider the things that I design as divine downloads. I'll put it that way.
Love it.
There are so many things that I love to message on. I'm mixed, for instance, ethnically. My birth mother was white, and birth father, I'm putting that in quotes, was black. But I'm actually a mixture, literally, of everything. I'm more Native American than Elizabeth Warren. I mean, it's crazy. I'm just a
Well,
mixture
it's
of
not
even part
hard,
Asian.
but
I'm all these things. And so my heart is for racial reconciliation, and being someone who was adopted and loved. In fact, we even have an adopted and loved fund. We actually fund families adoption journeys. We're passionate about doing all these things. And so when I think of the things that God has put in me, that God has put in my wife Bethany, the fact that we're best friends, we love all the same things, and we work really well together, which is kind of necessary if you're going to work together 24/7. Just saying, not all married couples do that,
right.
but the things that he's put in me, that he's put in Bethany, that he's put in our small but mighty team at Radiance Foundation is really, for us, it's a form of worship. So what we're doing, what we're creating, what we're saying, everything that we're doing, it's like, God, we're giving this to you because you gave us these abilities. And one of the funny things is, so I'm a creative director. I used to work in the ad agency world forever and a day. And I create a lot of stuff. In fact, if you go to radiance.life, you'll see a lot of the stuff that I do create. However, the secret's out. I'm actually colorblind. The actual terminology is color deficient. I actually see color. You say that, people are like, wait, you only see black and white? No,
Mhm.
but I don't necessarily know the colors that I'm working with, but I know it looks good together. And so here you have someone who is color blind, color deficient, and has hearing, certain hearing issues. And I've been a sound designer my whole life. That was my profession before I got married, before we started Radiance Foundation. But that's all to say, there are many things in life that you will probably think of as an obstacle, and God's like, no way, you can still do this. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yes, even if you're colorblind, even if you have hearing deficiency, even if you're missing limbs, even if, I mean, you can just fill in the blank. But God empowers us to do so much more than we can do on our own. And
Absolutely.
that's why I look at the talents and abilities that God has given us as a family, as a team at Radiance Foundation. We just want to make sure that we're directing that toward creating stuff that really is freeing, because there's a world out there just so hungry for the truth. And I can't tell you how many times people come up to me at events, at churches, and they'll say, "You're so bold in what you say," but I'm thinking, shouldn't this be every Christian? Shouldn't this be every person who says that I am a Christ follower? Isn't this what they're supposed to be doing? If Christ is king in your life, then I mean, Aaron, you were saying this earlier, that he didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And that's what we try to employ every day. Now, granted, we do get beat down. I mean, we get a lot of hate mail, we get death threats. I get smoke bombed out of University of Texas, Austin, and I get protested. I'm going to be hated. So what? Jesus said, "Hey, if the world hates you, guess what? They hated me first."
Right.
And so you're kind of on the right track, honestly, if people are hating you.
Right.
For the right reasons, though. Not hating you because you're a jerk, not hating you because
Absolutely.
you're a vicious person. I don't mean that. Because you're speaking the truth in love.
So, I guess to the people who genuinely do want to be bold, but they just feel like they don't want to rattle the cage, like Aaron, Kate, and I don't really struggle with that. We rattle cages all the time. You rattle cages all the time. But I'm sure that we all have people, know people who it's in there, but there is this fear or whatever else that is holding them back. Probably listening to this podcast right now, Ryan, please talk to that person. Please encourage them because you are such an encouragement to us. And so that's something that we have in our life all the time. We all have people that see it, that know it, but there's something there that acts as a barrier, and it could be a social anxiety type thing. I don't know, but I know that just like you said, every member of the church needs to be bold and unapologetic about speaking God's truth.
Right. And that can take on different forms. Like I think about my parents. My parents, it's so funny when people look back at their lives. In fact, there was a recent news interview and they were saying, wow, they were revolutionary. And it just kind of made me laugh, because when you think of revolutionaries and you think of the activists of today, that certainly not my parents, but they definitely were revolutionary.
Mhm.
They were quiet revolutionaries. They lived out their boldness. So there are different ways. Like my parents weren't out speaking here and there. They adopted 10 children, for the love. They adopted children of different hues and ethnicities and different broken backgrounds. There is a different way to be bold. And sometimes that means just engaging someone in a one-on-one conversation. Doesn't mean you have to speak in front of thousands. It
Right.
could be you going out of your way to care for someone that everyone else has kind of spurned.
Mm.
I mean, there are different ways to be bold, but being bold takes action. Thinking about it isn't the same thing as doing it.
Mhm.
And so there are ways that we can be bold. We can be bold even in our prayers, in our perpetual, the the prayers that just don't cease because you're believing for breakthrough for somebody in your life. Like I have, someone really close to me who's dealing with drug addiction, and what do you do with that? I mean, you may have someone who's dealing with homelessness, and what do you do with that? You keep on praying without ceasing. Par- For me, that's another way of being bold. It doesn't necessarily mean you're the total extrovert, which is
Right.
what I am, and then
Mhm.
you're out. But there are amazing ways to be bold. And I think of my mom, who
Right.
is not a public speaker, but my gosh, I mean, she's what, four? Like, I don't even know if she's 5 feet tall. She's pretty short. She, I think as
Aaron
she's
Cade's
gotten older,
really
she's gotten
good.
shorter, but she is so mighty. Her
That's right.
faith, her prayers, her words of affirmation. I mean, which is what my wife is amazing at. Everyone who's ever met my wife loves my wife because there's so much goodness coming out of her because she loves the Lord, and that just emanates from her. But there are different ways of being bold. But the requirement is we have to act on that. And sometimes it might be uncomfortable because we don't like discomfort. We want everything to be comfortable and everything to
Yeah.
be like, you know, Instagram perfect. Well, life isn't picture perfect. And honestly, it's because it isn't picture perfect. It's what makes it so beautiful.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you, spoke that way with the, dynamite comes in small packages. That's what I think of when I think of Aaron Cade. That's why I introduced you like that, because Aaron Cade is probably, just that same height, which is what?
4'8",
4'8", yeah. See,
56
there you
See?
go.
inches. There you
There you go, and I also am glad that you brought up your beautiful wife because I wanted to give a plug to this amazing book that I actually read to my seven-year-old last night, and I wanted to talk about why I love it because my boys I have 3 boys, and they are 11, 7, and then 1.5. Now the big 2 are well aware of what I do. They it's the seven-year-old who is I joke with Erin Kate, he is just on fire. I said he's gonna be her next employee because he is ready to go. He's ready to volunteer, and so we were in this book, and one of the things that I love that she did when she wrote this book is she used the word abortion, I think, twice in it, and I don't wanna give too much away, but it blessed me because it defined abortion as the taking of a baby's life before they're born or something really, really simple. And I think that's another roadblock for a lot of parents, or grandparents. Like they're scared to bring up pro-life kids. They're scared to have the pro-life conversation with their kids because I guess they're scared it's going to get into other conversations that it doesn't have to go there, okay? You were "Well, how'd the baby get in the mo" we're not going there, okay?
Right.
All you need to know is what abortion means because you're going to hear it. It's a baby, um, who is being killed before they're born. You know what being killed is. You've seen TV and all this stuff. There is an age-appropriate way to have the pro-life talk with your children, and she does an amazing job. And so, again, if you are looking for a children's book for Christmas or any other time, this is a great gift. It's a resource, for you parents out there. So, Erin Kate, final thoughts?
I'm just so grateful to have you here. I think that, the the conversation, especially around Christmas time, knowing that Jesus came as a baby,
Mhm.
I was reminded this week that, babies are just great disruptors, in life, and they make you stop and think, make people stop and think about their lives and what a witness a baby can be, and
Mhm.
it was God's purpose that he sent his son as a baby.
That's right.
And, so it's just important, I think, as we think about that, even as Christians, what a great time to have that
Right.
conversation with our kids. What a great time to have that conversation. That's easy. We talk about why do you think God sent his son as a baby? And how does that relate to the world around us today? And to a woman who wasn't married. I mean, there's just so much there at Christmas to just start a conversation. I think for me, right now with the abortion issue the way that it is in our country with so much, so many lies and so much lack of information on the pro-life side about the abortion pills and what's going on, just us as Christians, talking about it is, can save lives, can change lives. We can talk about the forgiveness and when Jesus died on the cross, it covered
Right.
the sin of abortion and how much healing and restoration is there for those who have made that decision. There's so many things that we can talk about around it, and I think it's the most important thing right now is that Christians, to start to have a conversation about the value of life, and so I'm just grateful that we were able to have this conversation with Ryan. I think your life story is such an amazing testimony of redemption and purpose and God's ultimate plan and your mother's both your adopted mom and your birth mom both of their faithfulness and both their courage is amazing. It's just amazing and it's so encouraging. So thank you.
Can you give us any information about the book that you have coming out?
I can, yes. In fact, right before that, I just want to say this about
Okay.
Christmas and adoption and all this. Adoption is the essence of salvation. There is no salvation without it, and there wouldn't be salvation if a courageous teen mother didn't fear
Mhm.
what could have been. Instead, she fled, fled a king. Which, how many people have a king trying to kill their firstborn? Okay, so she was a courageous woman. And then you had Joseph, who could have chosen to leave, but he chose to love instead. He could have chosen abandonment, but he chose adoption.
Mhm.
And because of that, here I am, all these years later, loving Jesus, my Lord and Savior,
Mhm.
because two parents adopted and loved me because of a courageous birth mom. In fact, the book that you mentioned, finally, it's been years and years in the making. Actually, been a lifetime in the making. It's called "Should Have Been Aborted," and it's to counter the false narratives out there, the pro-abortion narratives that deny that every human life is purpose. So if you go to radiance.life, you can pre-order the book. It actually comes out on my birthday, and which is May 5th. And this is crazy, and this is a whole other show maybe. But I was born on my birth mom's birthday. So
Wow.
that's why that date is very special for me, and that's when the book and the documentary, there's a mini documentary, that is going to come out just talk about how some of the best things in life aren't humanly planned.
Mhm.
And my life hopefully is a tangible example of that, how God enables triumph to rise from tragedy all the time.
Well, it absolutely is, and so we are so grateful for you and for your time just sitting down with us today and being such an encouragement to us, so we really appreciate you being here.
It was great to be with you guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. All right, Erin Kate, well, do you want to close us out by telling us, about year-end giving opportunities
Sure.
for CPC?
So we are in the final stretch of our year, and we still could use some support to help us reach our financial goals, help us finish the year strong. And so we're just asking our supporters if you can just to we'll put links that you can click on to support, but. We just want to ask you to help us to finish the year strong. As you know, all of our funding comes from the generous support of individuals and businesses and churches. We don't take any government funds. And what your money goes to is to allow us to be, first and foremost, visible in our community for women who are looking for abortion so that they can find us and find the help and hope that they need, and also to help us provide ongoing support for moms who choose life, as well as support and healing for men and women in our community who have experienced abortion and who need to be set free. So all of those wonderful things can happen just from your support, and we are so grateful for the way that our community comes together to be a safety net and be hope and help to women in our community. So thank you for giving.
Absolutely, and just to kind of piggyback off that, we had our Christmas open house yesterday, which was my first Christmas open house as a full-time CPC staffer, and so it was really a dream, seeing everybody. I was praying about that this morning. I was like, it was such a good day. All the conversations that we were able to have, and people walked around and could see the sonogram rooms and the counseling rooms, and we were just able to have good conversations. But one of the things that I noticed that came from those conversations, and I've heard it before at clinic tours and other things, when we were explaining why we exist now, with the urgency of the abortion pill crisis, so many times I have heard from people, "I didn't know. I thought that it wasn't as bad anymore because Roe was gone." Guys, the abortion pill is so easily ordered online and shipped very discreetly. It used to be where if a girl had a crisis pregnancy, she would go to her friend, she would go to her mom, she would go to her coach. That person may take her to a clinic, but she doesn't have to do that anymore if she has a phone. And so Satan is the ultimate abuser. Abusers do everything they can to isolate their victims first. And so with the abortion pill crisis, he has them alone. He has them with a phone. They don't have to talk to anybody. They can just order what they want and it will be shipped to them in secret. That is what we are up against. And that is why we need the funding because I feel like, and I've talked with Aaron Kate a little bit about this, and I think a lot of the problem is complacency and people feel like, oh, well, it's the world we live in, guys. We're always going to have that problem. And there's so much hopelessness in that, and that is not who we are as an organization. We believe. We saw what we thought was impossible with the Pink House shutting down. I remember hearing Aaron Kate pray. I can see it vividly in my head. I was standing in a circle, a couple years before the decision, and I remember specifically that she prayed, "Lord, shut this place down." And look where we are now. So, we are not hopeless, and we are not backing down. We are not going to let, abortion industries intimidate us because we have the Lord, and we are willing to fight back because He is our strength. So with that, I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas. One more plug that I will say for the sake of the podcast, we are giving away a bear. It says Image Bearer of God. It's a great stocking stuffer for a sweet kid in your life. The next 70 subscribers that we get for this podcast, it can be on YouTube, it can be on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, we'll give you a bear. So with that, I hope you will subscribe and I hope you'll get ready for a wonderful 2026. We've got a lot of great stuff planned.